virtual town hall for the Langridge ward. My name is Rod Quantock and I'm wearing my Make Yarra Great Again face mask. These are available through me for $10 each and all profits go to me. So feel free to get in touch after the event and I'll write one up with a text and send it to you. Anyway, that done, that's the advertising out of the way. We welcome you all to this second virtual town hall. Last night we had the residents of Melbourne join 12 candidates online, and it was an extremely interesting and very successful event, and we trust and hope and know that this one will be very successful as well. This is an event that's coordinated between the Fitzroy Residents Association and the Yarra Residents Collective. They've partnered to make this happen and they've done an extraordinary job. It really is an amazing event. It's designed to be informative. This is what it says here. Designed to be informative, inclusive and respectful and assist residents in how to cast their votes. The objective of the Fitzroy Residents Association is to keep Fitzroy livable and sustainable. Its mission is to promote, protect and enhance the residential amenity of Fitzroy. Now, a reminder to all our participants, our candidates, to keep your microphones on mute unless you're speaking. We've received many questions, which we've distilled into categories which seem to cover the interests of everybody who's contributed to sending questions to us. Now, the format tonight is simple. We'll begin by asking each candidate in the order that they appear on the ballot to introduce themselves for 2 minutes. From there, we'll move on to questions which the candidates have had in advance, so they are in a position to answer them succinctly, we hope. We're not putting a time limit on answers, but if I start to get fidgety, I will cut them off. We have 9 of the candidates here this evening. And once we've gone through the first group of questions at around 8:10, we will have an interval of about 5 minutes and then we'll return to the final questions, and then each candidate will have a minute to sum up. So before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the platform on which we appear, the super rich billionaires of Google and Mark Zuckerberg if you're on Facebook. So enjoy the evening. You'll find it really interesting, and in many ways it's so much better than actually having a meeting in a large space. It's much more personal and much more engaging. So we'll begin by asking each candidate to introduce themselves, and we'll begin with Michael Glynatasis. Michael, tell us how to pronounce it. You'll need your microphone, Michael.
That's it. How's that?
That's good.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Glynatasis.
That's how I would have said it if I'd said it.
Of course. Good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Glynatasis and I'm an independent candidate. I grew up in Abbotsford in the 60s and lived and worked around here all my life. I had the Golden Fleece service station, or the servo, if you want to call it, on Brunswick Street near Victoria Parade, if you all remember the Golden Fleece. In the 90s, I started the Aegean Greek restaurant on Brunswick Street as well. And it was a very popular wedding and special occasions venue. The bistro that launched 1,000 relationships, more or less. I'm running because Yarra needs more people like me on council who have run businesses and had to get through tough times. I want progressive values, good management in Yarra, and a lot more attention to street problems, level problems that we've had from the major parties. First, in this tough period of COVID, as we all enduring at the moment, I would never allow rate rises to help businesses. I want to help businesses get back on their feet and employ local people and especially the young. We can do this without cutting services. And if elected, I will never vote to cut any services. Melbourne's loss also of cultural heritage due to demolitions and inappropriate developments is deplorable and upsets and angers me. I'd like to put tougher control measures to save our heritage buildings and preserve our history. I'll seek more green spaces, parks and recreation areas to accommodate the higher influx of people to support the health and well-being of our community. I'll strive for sustainability and aim to keep Yarra livable through good planning controls and do our part for the environment. Above all, I'll listen to you. I love being out and about, talking to the thousands of people I've met over the decades and those I haven't met yet. I'll take up your issues, big or small, and make things happen. Thank you very much. That's about it.
Thank you very much, Michael. And Michael, I well remember taking one of my bus trips to your restaurant, and you were a very gracious host to me and my 45. Yeah, me and Trevor the Chook on the
Did you smash any plates?
It was a beautiful place.
No plates.
Now we move on to Steve Jolly. Stephen?
Thanks, Rod. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah, look, most of the viewers will know who I am. I've been in the trenches with the locals for the last 16 years. So I want to spend tonight talking about the mess this joint is in at the moment, the crisis that we're in. For 6 months now, all the bars, the clubs, the restaurants, the retail outlets have been shut down. Businesses are on the edge of collapse, and thousands of mainly young people have been made unemployed. And every layer of government in Victoria and overseas are under massive pressure from below to help out those workers who are suffering and to help out small businesses. Even Scott Morrison has doubled JobSeeker. Yet here in Yarra, last month on August the 7th, a budget was passed that shocked this municipality. As I said before, this joint is rooted at the moment economically, yet the budget jacked up rates. It increased by over the rate of inflation, the cost of childcare, vacation care, aged care, and much more. It deferred, in other words, it cut almost $6 million in job-creating capital works projects. This budget was driven through by the votes of the Greens and the Labour Party on the council with some of their independent friends. So no matter what baloney that they say tonight, those candidates from those parties need to be judged on the record of the parties that they belong to. This was the most important vote, in my opinion, in the history of Yarra, and they've ended up making things harder for the poor, the unemployed, and small businesses, so many of whom on the brink of closing down. Don't reward this behaviour, because if you do, you'll get 4 more years of it. I'm part of a community-based alliance of candidates, including Michael, who's just spoken, with a programme of change. We obviously want to reverse the cuts of the Greens and the Labour Party. We want to build low-cost housing, for example, on the land that we own just north of Collingwood Town Hall. But most importantly, it's stopping the developers' domination over our area. We need to change the planning rules root and branch. The developers have run this area for too long. At the moment, all the rules are stacked in the favour of developers. And progressive planners all over Victoria are telling us, like Leanne Hoddle, that we need to introduce density controls, the same set of rules for planning as we've got in the likes of Hong Kong, London, New York, and Vancouver, where much better results are got. Planners' role shouldn't be to facilitate profit making for developers, but to get a better result for the community that we live in and for the future. I'll explain more about that later tonight, but I think this election is a huge opportunity for change. And I encourage you to grab it at both hands by voting for me, number 1, and Michael, number 2, next week when you get your ballot papers. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you, Stephen. And now James Bay.
Can you hear me well?
Yes, I can, James.
Sure, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is James Bay. I want to start by giving a little bit of background about myself. I first came to Australia at the age of 14 as an international student with a little English. Having been here alone in Australia since a young age, I faced numerous difficulties. I had to solve problems on my own and look after myself. I worked hard and got into one of Australia's best law schools and became a lawyer who is now helping other Australians. My life's journey was unique, and as a result, I have grown in resilience and strength. Now, my wife and I are pregnant with a little boy who is to be born April next year. As soon to be a father, I'm committed to making the city of Yarra a great place where our children can thrive and reach their potential. We must acknowledge this is not only our home, but home for our children and future generations. As their guardians and adults, we have tremendous responsibility to preserve our way of living and make sure that our children are not worse off than what we enjoyed. This applies to all aspects: economical, social, and very importantly, environmental. And at last, I'm sure that all candidates have a very good policies, but the question will ultimately come down to whether they have the ability and energy to honor what they're promising. For me, I have worked for the Australian federal government as a legal advisor, where I provided legal advice to various agencies of the Australian government. In this role, I had developed intuitive understanding of the Ministry of Law and the public sector, and I believe this experience displays my strong attributes. In the end, we all want to make this community a better place, but we have to understand our powers and limitations as a counselor, and I will deliberate, act strategically within the boundaries allowed by law. With this in mind, I promise to you all that I will always act in the best interest of our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. And Karen Douglas. Welcome, Karen.
Right, thanks everybody. Look, firstly, I'd like to acknowledge that I joined this event on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nations, and I pay my respects to elders past and present. And I acknowledge that this land was stolen, never ceded. And I think it's always important to make that acknowledgement because it tells us a history, and a very important history, and it's a history that is always central to my thinking when I come to make decisions on behalf of other people. I benefit greatly from the Yarra community, and so I want to give back. So that's why I decided to, through the Labor Party, of which I am a member, to become a candidate for this year's Yarra City Council elections, and of course in the Langridge ward. I bring a range of skills to the role of councillor should I be elected. I have worked in the private sector, the public sector, and the not-for-profit sectors. I bring an enormous amount of planning skills, problem solving, consultation, implementation, and through my long trade union history, I have negotiated and advocated for people from all walks of life whose experiences of life I've not shared. And I've negotiated and navigated through some very, very tense environments where competing views and perspectives have often been at the core of the engagement between individuals or between groups of people. So I'm very used to having conversations around difficult circumstances. Today, I do some research around climate change, looking at how farmers are responding to changing weather conditions. And another element of my work is working for a not-for-profit who advocates for people living with intellectual disability, and particularly around rights of parents with intellectual disability to keep their children, and the rights of people with intellectual disability to have full access to mainstream educational services. So there are a couple of things that I'm pretty interested in if I was to be elected to Langridge. Services for our vulnerable people are very important. I think Langridge has a really rich history of looking after our vulnerable people, our young people, our old people, our people living with disability. And I think that those services and the need for those services are amplified in the current circumstances that we find ourselves in. Local jobs, good local jobs. Our trading partners are fantastic. They bring a lot of people into our community, and we all, of course, are missing the bars and the coffee shops and the massage. So I'm very keen to work with our traders to revive our businesses, but also to make sure that the jobs that are available, particularly for our young people, are good jobs, are decent jobs. And lastly, I play cricket up the road at Clifton Hill Cricket Club. And I think community sport, community engagement is so important for relationships, really important way to connect people regardless of what your skill set might be.
Karen,
so
we'll
thank you very much.
Wrap it up. Oh, thank you very much, Karen. Right on the knocker. Thank you very much. And now we come to Peter Hood. Is that right, Peter?
Yeah, that's definitely close enough. That'll do.
Close enough. Good. Thank you and welcome.
Thanks, Rod. And thanks to Karen for doing the acknowledgement of country, because I agree that is important that we do keep that top of mind whenever we're meeting like this. So several years ago, I used to live near the corner of Church Street and Bridge Road, and I watched a formerly vibrant precinct slowly decline, and it really was heartbreaking to watch. It was really sad. And over the past few months, it feels like deja vu, but this time for the entire area, not just such a localized area, and happening at a much faster speed. I've watched nearby apartments empty out. I've seen local businesses struggle, and some have even closed their doors for good. While our area definitely has amazing natural features, and walking by the river is one of my personal favourite things to do, most of us love living here for the energy, the vibrancy, and most of all for the people. And I'm really worried that the pandemic puts that at risk. So I'm putting myself forward as a candidate for 3 reasons. Firstly, I believe that I have the skills that are needed to help rejuvenate and rebuild our community. I am a computer programmer by training, but I have worked in a variety of roles. I've worked in technology companies, I've worked for the state government, I've worked for ombudsman services. So I bring with me a very broad range of skills. Secondly, I'm a very accessible person. I'm a trained mediator, and I know the value of having your voice heard. No one should underestimate the importance of knowing that your counsellors are at the very least listening to you and taking your views into account when they're making decisions. And thirdly, I'm independent. I'm not representing any party or other group. I'm not accepting donations from anyone. I'm only here to represent you. I'm here for the residents of Yarra City Council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And now we have Anab Mohammed. Anab, we don't have vision of you. Can you hear us? Anab? Oh, look, we might have to come back to Anab.
I believe Anab was momentarily cut off from the conversation.
Oh, okay.
Just come back to it at the end, yeah.
Yes, all right. Well, we'll move on to Jeremy Cohen. Jeremy, welcome. Thanks for being here or there.
Thank you so much. And I would also like to pay my respects to the people of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging as well. My name is Jeremy Cohen. I'm a proud Abbotsford local. I'm 19 years old. I'm a gay man. I am your Reason Party candidate for Langridge Ward in the city of Yarra. I've currently got my policy advisor, Buddy, the greyhound, sitting on the ground behind me. So you'll be able to talk to me throughout the night. Now, I'm motivated to represent Yarra because I believe we should be represented by real people with good common sense. In particular, we know that the LGBTQIA+ youth are systematically underrepresented in all levels of government. I also don't know why you have to be a career politician or a political staffer to run for office. I don't know why it can't just be a regular local who just really cares about their community and wants to see compassion and evidence-based policy. Now, this next council will need to be one that works together extremely cohesively and effectively. We are now facing the worst recession in 3 decades. That's just the fact of it. And so we do not have time to waste in the next months and in the next 4 years to create a platform for Yarra to build and to lead our country in all matters, social and economic. I've personally been on JobKeeper since March. I understand the difficulties so many of us face. So these next few years will be the ultimate test for our community, and we must rise to this challenge. We should look, and I believe as a young voice, I can bring this, at every facet of the council and the way we work and the way our assets are utilised. We all know our shopping strips are empty. We need to support these communities and sole traders to help them. And we need to be thinking really long term as well, beyond just the next couple of elections and well into the next few decades for how Yarra is going to look, because I will still be around for lots of the decisions that are being made right now. There is a climate crisis knocking on our door. Our city is also millions in dollars in deficit, so we need to address these problems. And I look forward to working with everyone in the community to represent your best interests. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. Jeremy, and Anab Mohammed is back. Welcome back, Anab. It's your turn.
So my name is Anab Mohammed. I migrated from Somalia about 20 years ago as a refugee to Australia. I've lived in Brunswick Street, Fitzroy for the past 16 years, and then down in Napier Street, I think for the past 7 years. I've grown up in Fitzroy. I started my first courses and everything that I need to do through all the organizations around Fitzroy. I've spent time just running up and down. It's molded me into who I am today. And because of that reason and living in public housing and all the issues that my community faced, I felt like decisions were being made without like consulting with us from the beginning. So that's what encouraged me to run for council, so that I can be part of the decision making with my community in hand. I'm not here to say today I'm going to change this and I'm going to change that, but I want to change things with my community in hand. You know, I want the voices of the community to be raised. I want the community to be more engaged. I want to raise awareness and then being persistent into things that matter to us the most, and that together we're stronger as a community. Whether it's tackling all the issues that our community faces, it's better for us to do it together. Than I can't do the job without my community, you know. So if my community asks me about an issue, it's about me gathering everyone together, seeing how many people having those issues, getting the numbers and all that stuff, and just sticking together as a community to make those changes, and not like speaking to one side of the community, but getting all the communities to join in as one, from different cultures, diversity. You know, everyone speaks about diversity, but we don't see a lot of it involved in the decision making in the government. That also inspired me to run for council. And as your council, I'm here to make changes with you guys. I'm not here to make changes by myself. I want to make changes with my community, and I want them to be involved in decision making and all the things that they need us to change for our future to better it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anab. And now we've got Gabrielle De Viatri. Gabrielle, welcome. And your 2 minutes starts now.
Hello, I'm Gabrielle De Viatri. I'm calling in from Wurundjeri Woiwurrung land, and I pay respect to elders past, present and emerging. I've lived in Langridge for 15 years, first in North Richmond and now in Collingwood. I am running for council because I love our local area. You just get the best of all worlds in Yarra. You get the inner city life, beautiful natural spaces, diverse communities. I love cycling down the leafy streets and then emerging into the hustle and bustle of our vibrant shopping strips. We are spoiled by cafes and bakeries, by bookshops and hidden galleries. I love the beautiful Yarra River and the wildlife it sustains. And most of all, I love the people of Yarra who care deeply about their neighbourhoods and about each other. I am a community activist and paralegal at Refugee Legal, but I come from 15 years in the arts, where I've made projects about environmental and social issues. For example, I spent 6 months in the Wimmera making a documentary and working with the local footy clubs to invent a new 3-team game based on Aussie rules. I'm not your ordinary kind of artist, and I certainly won't be your ordinary kind of councillor. I will bring energy, imagination, and a collaborative spirit to my role on council. I will work hard to listen to and represent Yarra's diverse voices. Some of my priorities on council are to make Yarra a place where everyone can walk, ride or wheel to where they need to go, with safe and accessible pedestrian and cycling infrastructure and an expanded urban forest. I want to support our communities to build back better during and after the pandemic, whether it's our business communities, our public housing communities, our creative or our sporting communities. And I will work hard to create a climate-safe future through a quick and fair transition to renewable energy, fossil-free transport, and a circular economy. I'd like to note that every one of the visions that we will address tonight needs rates to pay for it, and that the majority of council's income comes from rates paid by developers, property owners, and business owners. So I would like you to think about that as we're talking about our grand visions. I'm running us alongside Anab Mohammed in Langridge, and we look forward to serving this community as part of a team on council. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle. And now we move on to Matt Mordecai. Hiya, Matt. Thanks for being here.
Thank you so much. As I'm in the last standing person there at the list, and hopefully people will make their way up, because you need a foundation where you make your bottom up. This is part of things that I learned from my studies. You have said my name. I came here 18 years ago. I call City of Yarra home for a number of years. And City of Yarra have given me at least 3 things. When I came from South Sudan, I was not a graduate. I came here, I joined Melbourne Uni. I went to Countryside Dookie College. You might be aware of that. It's one of the historical colleges in Australia for a number of years. I finished my degree there. I came back to Parkville, another degree. And now City of Yarra have given me 3 degrees. I also have a family. I'm a father of 2. I'm independent, and I've been running a number of activities within City of Yarra for the last 11 years. You might be surprised, but it's reality. I run women group around Fitzroy and Collingwood. And that was run in a meeting. We used to have it fortnightly. I form African Homework Club, where others join, like Vietnamese and Afghanis, and it's still running up to now. And because of the restriction, I've been able to have access to online tutoring, where kids are not left behind. I'm standing because I've been living here for long, and it's about time we show diversity. You don't talk about diversity, you show it by representation of the diverse community and inclusion. I bring in the skill you might need and you need. I'm a scientist without a job. I have studies, and nowadays we talk about a lot of things. They are back to science. And with that in mind, I've been helping the community for a number of years. I have helped a number of young people with their issues. They always come to me. And also, if I'm elected, I want to make sure we have local jobs for local people. We need to look after our small businesses. I talked to a number of them, and they say we're suffering. Some of them already closed down. It's about time we look after them. And also, we need spaces for young people and for families. I run around here. I exercise every morning. People see me, and they're happy to see me being part of the election. And they say, what you've been waiting for? We want to see you there. We see you every time. You talk to us. You are approachable and available for us. If I'm elected, I'll make sure voices are heard, not only heard, but valued. If you want to succeed, you want to do things together. We have a say in Africa. It takes a village to raise, the community, or to raise a child. But it takes a community to advance to better future. And together we can succeed together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Well, thank you all for your introductions, and we'll move on to the questions. And a couple of you said you didn't have them. I hope you've now received them. But the first is from Teresa Saldana of Melbourne Ward, and she wants to know what ongoing issues are you aware of in your ward that still have to be resolved. And again, just you can, James has got his hand up to begin. So James, the answer goes to you.
Let me tell you, can you hear me well?
Yes, we can now.
Sure. Okay, well, there are many issues facing our council and Langridge Ward. The first issue I would like to mention is the deteriorated Walmer Street Bridge. For far too long, over 3,500 pedestrians and cyclists use this bridge every day despite the safety concerns. The agreement has been reached that redevelopment will go ahead, but it has to happen soon, like next year, 2021. We cannot wait until 2023 or 24. Secondly, It is a controversial issue, and I know many people will not like my answer. However, I must say this, as this is not a popularity contest, I must admit. The injection room. It is currently located adjacent to a primary school in a high-density residential area. Let me ask you one simple question. Who, as a parent, would want to send their children to the school next to it if you had a choice? As soon to be a father living in Abbotsford, I would definitely not. There are just too many issues in the surroundings, and our children are not being exposed to the risks. The state government needs to come up with a better location that makes sense. Being next to school is not a great choice of location for the injection room. It is simply wrong, and I'll fight with my toes and nails for the relocation if I'm elected to be your councillor. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And Gabrielle, you put your hand up too.
Thanks, Rod. Yes, so specific projects across Langridge that need continuing attention and advocacy. In terms of pedestrian and cycling infrastructure, Yarra's great, but we do have a long way to go. And I agree with James that the Walmer Street Bridge needs urgent attention. The state government needs to commit to making it safe and accessible and upgrading that facility so that it can accommodate all those people. And it must also complete the Gibb Street project after 14 years of false starts and abandoned plans. We must also protect our public housing from the state sell-offs and advocate to increase the quality and the quantity of public housing in Yarra. COVID recovery, of course, is an ongoing issue that is global but affects Langridge in its specific ways. We have a lot of thinking, strategizing, consulting and advocating to do to ensure that that recovery is equitable and inclusive and sustainable, and it creates a better future for everyone. And the biggest unresolved elephant in the room, of course, is climate change. Thanks to Greens on Council, Yarra has declared a climate emergency, but the actions under the first year of the plan have been deferred to pay for the COVID recovery, which was of course necessary. The Greens on Council will make sure that having declared an emergency, the Council continue to treat it as such. Climate emergency planning touches all areas of local government operations and will be considered in every decision I make. I support initiatives that increase the renewables uptake by homeowners, that increase building efficiency, that increase uptake by renters and businesses as well. I will make sure that the Yarra Energy Foundation stays resourced by Council. I will work to promote active transport and increase transport reduce transport emissions. And I'll move to make Yarra Council facilities carbon positive without offsets. I'd like to address urban warming by creating green spaces, biodiverse nature refuge areas, and increasing tree canopy. And I support community-led action on climate change. That is one of our biggest unresolved projects, and I will do my very hardest to be able to mitigate climate change effects in Yarra for the sake of our global community.
Okay, thanks, Gabrielle. We're going to come next to Karen, then we'll come to Matt, and then Jeremy have all indicated they'd like to answer. So, Karen?
Yes, thanks, Rod. And
I've got my hand up too, by the way.
I'll give to you, Stephen. Yep.
Yeah, I just know if you saw that. That's okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Teresa, for the question. Look, I have committed to work with the member for Northcote, Kate Theophanous, and the Minister for Roads to complete the Farm Road bicycle path link in Alphington. This is an outstanding project for some time that needs a dedicated thought process to it. And for those of you who may not be aware of it, there's some fantastic bike paths up at that northern part of our wonderful electorate of Langridge, but it ends at a particular point in South Alphington, and people have to go on to a very narrow part of Heidelberg Road near Sayers Park to then get access back into the bicycle path to then head up to Kew. So there's a couple of councils that are involved in that project, and I'll work with councils, community and my Labor state colleagues to complete that link and make it safer for everybody. I also just want to address the issue of the medically supervised injecting room. The location, as people would know, is a state government issue. That aside, the state government recognises from the Hamilton report that the safe injecting room is saving lives. There's been about 3,500 overdoses that have been managed. And of course, the safe injecting facility also provides an extraordinary amount of really important wraparound health services for our people. And it's also estimated that about 22 lives have been saved through the medically supervised injecting room. And if people are not aware of the fantastic facility that it is, I'd suggest you go to the Department of Health and Human Services website, and there's a really informative video there that people can look at and just see what the great work is that is being done in that facility. But it is true that amenity needs to be fixed around there. There has been a reduction in drug use, but it's still not good enough. And the state government has committed $9 million to the community to improve amenity. And my commitment to the people of not just Langridge, but Melbourne and Yarra broadly, is to work with you and to be a conduit for the community in relation to that expenditure. Now, the former Police Commissioner, Ken Lay, has been appointed by the state Labor government to oversee the expenditure of that $9 million. And I'm very, very happy to work with everybody across the community to ensure that that money is best spent where the amenity is needed. And I also note that the report, the Hamilton Review, notes that the school enrolments have increased in the last several years. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And Matt.
Yeah, thank you so much. Some of the issues that we're having in our wards, one of them is small businesses. As I was talking to some of them, they were saying that normally they pay $10,000 a year to the council, but this year they don't know what to do. And also the issue of parking. They said, like in Smith Street, you have parking until midnight or 11 p.m. They say it will be a just thing to do if the parking could be up to 6, or after 6 will be free, so that customers could come and buy with the peace of mind. They don't need to worry about tickets. The other thing is mental health. Because of COVID-19, some people lost their loved one. They lost jobs. It's about time we, as a community and as a council, we need to look after our vulnerable. And the way you judge the community, it's how we look after people who could not support themselves. It's a duty of care, and it's about time we do something about it. Also, the other issues of having young people who might have finished their studies, but they don't have anything that they could focus on, whether it's a program that is designed for them or providing them with even part-time jobs so that they will feel this community is looking after us. Because before we know it, in next 20 years or even 10 years, these young people, they're the one who's going to lead us. It's about time we invest in them and we will keep them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. Now, Jeremy, off you go.
Thank you very much. And so because it's been brought up, I feel compelled to address the MSIR, Melbourne Safe Injecting Room. Now, so as Karen has already touched on, it's a state issue. The location is a state decision. And it was decided because in about a 300 square metre radius in North Richmond, exactly where the MSIR is, there were a high number of ambulance call-outs, of drug overdoses and drug-related deaths. So that location is it was decided because of that, because the drug use was already there. Now to answer the question, what are the problems in the community? And it is the North Richmond area. We need to improve it. And as Karen touched on, the North Richmond Precinct Project has been allocated $9 million. And so I guess the question for council is how best to use it. And what must be done is to look at how the money can be used holistically to improve amenity across the whole area. And that must be looked at in conjunction with the rest of the city of Yarra, and how things such as active transport, like, protected bike lanes, can be interconnected throughout the rest of the community through long-term planning and long-term vision. The $9 million can't be spent in isolation. It must be part of a wider rejuvenation of public amenity for North Richmond. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeremy. We'll come next to Stephen, and then Peter has his hand up as well. Stephen?
Honestly, Rod, I can't believe some of the dribble I've just been listening to. Let's start with the supervised injecting facility. Obviously, we need a supervised injecting facility. In fact, we need 7 or 8 in Melbourne. The Labor Party back in the day promised us 7 or 8. Yarra Council promised us 4. Because we've only got 1, Richmond's got to take the load for the whole of this municipality. That's not fair. It's also wrong to put it next to a primary school and the biggest public housing estate in the Southern Hemisphere. So what the residents are saying is we need to defend the supervised injecting facility, move it to a better location. I personally think it should be on Victoria Street, where the drugs are actually purchased. But we also need more supervised injecting facilities, and we need more drug reform. We need to start treating drugs the same way we should treat alcohol and cigarettes. Now, the Liberal candidate, James, we have to remember the last time these guys were in power at the state level, they tried to privatise the open space on the public housing estates. And the time before that, they closed down Richmond Secondary College. So beware of people with promises coming out of the woodwork at the last minute. Now, Gabrielle made a point, and it's absolutely quite shocking. It needs to be highlighted. She said, we cannot afford, the council, the last council, this council, couldn't afford to implement the climate change policies that we need because we had to pay for the COVID rescue package. What a lot of nonsense. We've got $55 million in reserves at Yarra Council. We've wasted money. We pissed it up against the wall, buying buildings next to Richmond Town Hall that we didn't need. We've got an extra layer of management at the highest level that we don't need at Yarra Council. We have the money to spend on climate change here at the City of Yarra. For example, only $300,000 was slashed from bicycle infrastructure. So I don't think that should be accepted. The Labor Party candidate promises all these great things, that she's going to work very collaboratively with the Northcote MP and the state government and implement all these fantastic changes. And let's hope that's true. But let's remember, we've had the state government in power now for almost a decade. We've got 2 councillors in the Labor Party in the current council. One of them's been mayor, and none of this has happened. So apparently they were all no good. She's going to come in and implement it. It's just nonsense. These people don't want to defend their party's role on this council. So they just try to wipe their hands of it and promise the promised land. And you'd want to have a rock in your head to believe it. What are the issues? Number one, the economic crisis, to repair the damage that the council have done in the last budget by jacking up rates when the businesses are on their knees. Second of all, obviously, we've got a housing crisis. So we need, as I said before, to build houses on the land that we own, but also to have inclusionary zoning, like they have, for example, in Britain, so that every large development is forced to have a percentage of low-cost housing. Thirdly, the climate change. I mean, one of the things that I pushed in council for, which has been accepted, to be fair, but it's still in the process of being implemented, is that all new developments, because 86% of emissions in Yarra comes from the powering of our buildings and offices with fossil fuel derived energy. If we ban that at Yarra, if we wedge the local member and the planning minister and the state government on this issue, we could almost overnight slash and burn climate emissions in this municipality by forcing renewable energy on the new developments. And of course, with planning, as I said before, and hopefully there's a question coming up this later tonight, I see, so I won't carry on here, but we have to totally change the way we do planning, because at the moment it's a developer's paradise. Anyone can see that if you walk around Yarra, and there are much better ways of doing it, as it's done in many other cities of the world, and we need to look at that, implement that, and I've promised that if the team that I lead wins this election, we'll start that process before Easter of next year. Thanks, Stephen. And Peter.
Thanks, Rod. I feel like I might be a bit of an anticlimax after that. So there are a lot of issues that are ongoing in the ward. As Stephen mentioned and a few others did as well, planning and development and a lack of green space is something that afflicts particular areas of the ward more so than others. The cycling lanes have become very controversial because the consultation was handled badly on Elizabeth Street, so that's still an ongoing issue. We've had changes to recycling that were forced on the council by external factors, but the transition hasn't necessarily been handled well. And definitely there are some concerns about safety, and some of those are driven by the medically supervised injecting room. I wouldn't say that I think that it's necessary to move it. It was put there for a very good reason. And at the time it was put there, 20% of the overdoses that happened in Victoria were happening in North Richmond in that small area. So it was put there very deliberately because that's where the problem was. But I do agree that now it's been a trial for more than 2 years. And the trial has proven successful, and it's time that that we expanded and we open new medically supervised injecting rooms around Melbourne. We're a city of 5 million people. If we had just one hospital for the entire city and all the residents in North Richmond were being kept awake by the ambulance sirens all night, we'd say, let's build another hospital. It doesn't make sense to leave it in one spot. So everyone has the right to healthcare, including people who have substance abuse, substance addiction issues. But similarly, everyone has a right to feel safe in their homes. So the concerns of the residents around there are not made up. They're not in their head. It is facing problems with safety. So I think that the solution is not to move it. It's there for a reason. The solution is to push the state government to open up more medically supervised injecting rooms around Melbourne so that North Richmond isn't bearing the entire brunt of it.
Thank you very much, Peter. Is anybody else would like to answer that question before we move on? Okay, we seem to be happy. All right, we'll move on to the second question. This is going quite well. The City of Yarra has recently endorsed a community engagement strategy. How would you ensure inclusive community engagement and consultation? Jeremy, I think you might have been first.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, I'd just like to acknowledge, I'd just like to mention one of my favourite Michelle Obama quotes, when they go low, you go high. So I won't get into talking about what council hasn't or has done in the past. I'd just like to present my, my vision for Yarra, and I hope the other candidates do so as well. Now, community engagement is really important, and we know that it has failed. It has failed the residents for the last few years. The problem is not that the community doesn't want to get engaged, it's that the council doesn't want to engage with the community. And for myself, I know that talking to my peers, I mean, you know, people in high school, for instance, they don't know what a local government is. They go, am I in Yarra? That no one knows, right? So it's about reaching out to these to our diverse community in the places that where you can find them. For instance, your Say Yarra, a great tool for hearing feedback. We should have an app for that. Simple, right? It has been suggested. Why hasn't it been done? And for our diverse communities who speak another language other than English as their first language, why isn't there Facebook pages, Instagram pages, WeChat? Why aren't there, you know, Yarra City Mandarin, Yarra City Vietnamese pages where it's all in the different communities' preferred languages, telling them the news that might be important to them, and things like, you know, enrolling to vote or inviting them to have their say on local issues. So it's about taking the consultation away from the people who, the few who have a very strong voice at the moment, and spreading it around to everyone in the places where they like to engage with organisations. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Jeremy. And Matt, you wanted to contribute.
Yeah, thank you so much. Having a involvement of the community is a key to moving things along and developing the ways where everyone feel they belong and where they feel they are contributing. Now, if this strategy is developed, it's very important that the community members are consulted. The consultation, I'm sure City of Yarra have number of community leaders where they will communicate with their members. It will be a good thing to take it to that level. And also not to design things for your own members. You don't design things and expect things to happen. You ask people how do they want it to be done. And if you want a success, you come and see what the community value. Now, this is historical and global. If you want to serve a community, you see what is important to them. What is important to them is what they value. And you need to bring that aboard. And I think it's important that we include this for success of our local council. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And Anab.
That's a very good question. I think that's the most important question to me because that's what I'm passionate about, community involvement, engagement. And like Jeremy said, not a lot of people are aware of what even a local government is, you know? So engaging the community is very important. And who knows what the community wants than the community itself? They're the ones that know which street is safe, which street is not, which street needs help, which street doesn't, you know? So involving the community and knowing what they actually want and need is the best option, I think, for council to go by and to consult with the actual community instead of telling them what their wants and needs are. And the youth as well, like Jeremy said, have no idea about all this stuff. So I reckon, you know, raising awareness, this community engagement has actually started to get more people involved, 1 by 1, 2 by 2, 3 by 3s. And the more we actually get the community out there and inform them and raise awareness, the more we can have community join us. And not only from one background, from all different backgrounds. And I am very multicultural. I have friends from all walks of life around Fitzroy, Collingwood, Richmond, just the whole area in general. And I'm willing to raise those awareness and help the community to actually make and come up with great ideas together and, you know, in harmony. Thank you.
Thank you, Anab. And now, James, you'd like to contribute.
Yarra Council has come up and published the detailed council plan with the community engagement strategies. And I agree with all of them and ensure particularly that we build resilience by providing opportunities and places for people to meet, be involved, and connect with the community. And secondly, we will also continue to acknowledge and celebrate our diversity and people from all cultural backgrounds. More precisely, I would lead the council to make Yarra the center for multiculturalism, a place where people come and celebrate the Full Moon's Day, which is tomorrow, Chinese New Year's, many other cultural events. And I'll do my best to bring out all the glory back to our streets, but of course, within our means. Also, in relation to speaking different languages, at home, I personally speak Korean at home. But it would be great if our council could offer its communication in all different languages, but we must realize our limitations. But to be honest, I'm not convinced it would be realistic to provide all the communication of the council in 20 plus different languages. The biggest problem in the field of community engagement that we have with our council is that it does not perform enough stakeholder consultations. And this, as a result, has resulted in decisions that are not in the best interest or consensus of our local community. For example, the proposed closure of Trenary Crescent and bike lanes on Park Street and Elizabeth Street. If I'm elected as a councillor, I'll engage our community through democratic discussions and find optimal solutions that work for our community. Thank you.
Thank you, James. And we'll come to Peter and then Karen. So, Peter.
Thanks, Rod. I think that there have definitely been some recent examples of community engagement that haven't gone well for Yarra Council, and something that should have been a reasonably straightforward change, which was the upgrade of the bike lanes on Elizabeth Street, has, I think Councillor Jolly called it, turned into World War III. And the basics of community engagement is about meeting people where they are. And when there is an obvious group who speaks a language other than English, then the responsibility is on the council to put out information to be accessible in that language. Additionally, I think that for councillors, it's an absolute minimum that we are showing up to the local events, that we're showing up to the meetings of local groups, that when we're invited, people go and people are prepared to put in that time. And so I think that the onus is really not just on the councillors, but on the council too, to behave in a way that goes to the community and gives them the opportunity to have their say. So I think the reason that I'm putting myself forward is because I'm an accessible person. I have my contact details available on my website, and that will always be the case if I'm elected, that people will be able to get in touch with me to have their say and to make sure that I'm always accessible to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And Karen.
Yes, thanks, Rod. And look, I agree with all of the comments that have been made previously, and I'm particularly interested in Jeremy's comment around young people, and perhaps not just young people, but people not being aware of the importance of local government. And we've all talked about a number of the issues that have driven us to put our hands up to volunteer our time to be hopefully future council laws for not just for our own specific wards, but for the greater city of Yarra. So I think that's a really important issue, that we talk about what local council can do and the importance of local councils. So, and the specifics, I think many of them have been covered, but there's all manner of other things. And as I've said in my introductory remarks, my particular work and interest background is with people with disability and with intellectual disability. So there are actually other ways that we need to be communicating with our vulnerable citizens as well, through advocates, through non-verbal forms of communication. I have committed to forming reference groups with residents who have approached me, particularly around planning and budget issues. So there's another form of communication I will engage with. And there's listening posts and newsletters and other mechanisms that that we can institute. And I think the other thing is really important. There will be 3 councillors who are elected out of the Langridge ward, and I think it's really important that we have respectful relationships between the councillors, not just in the specific wards, but right across the city of Yarra, because we are working for the city of Yarra, and it's really important that we can work together to advance the interests of our entire community. So I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Karen. Does anybody else want to add?
Yeah, I've got my hand up.
Sorry, Stephen, I missed that. Yes.
You have to earn respect, and at the moment, I don't think the council sometimes respects the residents, but actually sees resident engagement and resident pushback on issues as residents being pests. And I think it was Robespierre that said in the French Revolution, people don't like missionaries with bayonets. And what we've had this year is 4 occasions where the council have mismanaged community consultation. Obviously, the parking on Studley and Yarra, we all know that one. The Trenery Crescent, the issue at the moment with the Mollison, Langridge and Nicholson, and of course, Elizabeth Street, where they literally, it was like a colonial power. They literally distributed information to an overwhelmingly Vietnamese community only in English. And when the Vietnamese community came to council and said, we can't even read this stuff, nothing was done about it. So we know that the engagement by council has been a big fail this year. So what do we do about it? There's 3 things I think we need to do in the next council. Number 1 is to democratize the advisory committees so that they actually represent the genuine bicycle community, the heritage community, and all the different advisory groups that we have. They're not fully democratic in my view at the present moment in time. Second of all, rather than seeing the resident associations as threats, as enemies of the council, we need to be supporting them. Your FRAs, your 306H, your CARAs, your North Fitzroy group, and all the different resident associations that exist in Yarra. There's obviously a missing link in Richmond. We need bigger ones in Richmond. We need to be supporting them with free meeting rooms, with the type of material resources that they need to be effective so that they can engage, because sometimes the residents know better than the officers. Sometimes the officers come out of RMIT with a planning degree or whatever it might be and think that they can change the whole world. And sometimes if they just listened to the residents, we'd get a better outcome, and it would be a lot cheaper than having a year-long blue. And then in the end, sometimes the residents win. And the third thing that we need to do, and this is the big issue, is the 3 public housing estates. We have the highest percentage of public housing tenants of any municipality in Australia. None of them have resident associations. And we need to be supporting public housing residents to have strong residents association. The only one that had one was Fitzroy. And the state government locked them out of their rooms at the bottom of 140, as Anab knows as well as anybody. And they've been locked out, and it basically is non-event at the moment. That's an absolute tragedy that we don't have public housing resident associations. The council have got to stick their nose in there and assist people, like, actually, to be honest with you, like Matt and Anab and other public housing activists, to establish those resident associations on the estates. If we do those 3 things and work with the community rather than seeing them as pests, I think we're going to get a better result in the long run.
Thank you very much, Stephen. Anybody else like to add to that? Yes, Gabrielle. We just need your microphone.
Thank you.
Oh, there we go.
It's done, thank you. So at the local government level, I believe we're really lucky to have an incredibly democratic process. Thanks to Greens on Council in Yarra, the meetings are live streamed. Community members can speak with councillors directly. They can invite them to see an issue, and they will come. Community members can participate in feedback surveys before and during and after decisions are made. They can put forward petitions like I did earlier this year with Sophie Wade. We put forward a petition to expand the footpath, to increase outdoor dining and to make Smith Street into a thriving pedestrian hub, because we could see that next lockdown coming and we knew that something needed to be done to revitalise our high streets. Community members can ask questions, they can make submissions and they can speak at council meetings. Essentially, there is a town hall style meeting on a monthly basis in Yarra that's accessible to all. Yarra's 2020 satisfaction survey has shown consistently high levels of satisfaction with the way that Yarra engages with its residents, but there are problems. Recent issues have shown that for some areas of the community, there is a gap in accessing and following through with those democratic services and processes. And I believe that the community engagement strategy does go some way with addressing those lapses in communication. As was mentioned by Jeremy and by Karen and by Anab, we need accessible, linguistically and technologically diverse outreach with community members so that they can be invited into the conversation, not just when there's a problem, but in developing the visions for a better future. The Yarra Greens have established weekly listening posts so that we can hear from and respond to residents on a weekly basis about what's important to you. They are online at the moment and you can access them through Facebook. And if elected, I would really push to continue these kinds of regular drop-in sessions with councillors so that we can stay in touch with the community concerns and the community needs. I'd also really love to see more and different forms of deliberative democracy, citizen panels, local panels for local problems, a transparent democracy. And that should be accompanied by an education and an access campaign that lets residents know that they can be involved in the key decisions about their local area.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle.
Thanks very much.
And I should point out that question came from Sarah Dixon of Nichols Ward. Now, we're getting close to interval. This next question has in part been covered, but we'll deal with it as well. It's from Erin Tidswell of Nichols Ward. Yarra's claim of a climate emergency.
I had my hand up. Sorry.
Oh, I'm terribly sorry, Michael.
That's all right. That's okay.
Go on.
Look, I believe the community engagement policy can better reflect the role of the local government plays at a participatory sphere of government by affirming the integral role of councils elected democratically through the electoral process. The community engagement plan can be strengthened by incorporating measures to achieve community-driven action across the city's neighbourhoods and empower citizens. The engagement plan also should be strengthened through the inclusion of community advisory boards, neighbourhood committees, community budgeting and citizen juries as a means of achieving joined up planning and services. It should prioritise participatory decision making and identify actions, timing and measures, including the importance of place-based leadership, a localist agenda, resilience to shocks and stresses and collaboration at a regional scale. I also believe that deliberative community engagement can help to create better council services, promote social cohesion and foster a thriving democracy. That's all. Thank you, Rod.
Thank you very much, Michael. And I'm sorry about missing your right hand.
Not a problem.
So this question, as I said, has been dealt with in a couple of the answers already. We've probably got about 5 or 6 minutes to deal with it before we have our break. If we don't finish it, we'll come back to it after the break. This is Yarra's claim of a climate emergency is not reflected in the assessment of planning applications that have the most lasting impact locally and globally. Would you act to change this, and if so, how? And Gabrielle, you're first up. You were quick. You're away.
Thanks. I think as a Greens candidate, you've got to jump in on this one quickly because it's one of our top priorities at all levels of government. So yes, I would change that. Thanks for the question. Building emissions from electricity make up the largest proportion of our carbon emissions in Yarra and across Australia. I want planning outcomes and development outcomes that meet our obligation to mitigate the worst of climate change and to build a climate safe and future-proof city. However, there are significant limitations in the state planning system that stand in the way of fair outcomes for the environment and for people. Thanks in part to the Greens on Council, Yarra has submitted a planning scheme amendment to the state, to the Minister, to implement a zero carbon local policy for new developments. As a representative of this community, I will also advocate for planning reform so that planning better meets the needs of the environment and the community. I will advocate to mandate and enforce ambitious environmental standards for new development. And that includes meaningful on-site renewable energy generation and building efficiency. It means maximum parking provisions, not minimum parking provisions, and secure bike parking and electric charging facilities for electric bikes and electric cars. It means more green space. It means water harvesting, organic waste handling, and better recycling facilities for new developments. I will make principled decisions alongside the team on council that shape and support a growing city while addressing our urgent responsibility to keep global warming in check.
Thanks, Gabrielle.
Thanks.
We'll come to Matt next, then Karen, and then Stephen. So Matt.
Thank you so much. Now, it's important that people understand things. First of all, if I'm elected, I will make sure that it change, and we need to be mindful of the climate change. It's not a joke anymore. People might disagree with it, but the last year fires and flood is an evidence. Now, very important thing that we need to understand also is conservation and sustainability. It's as simple as this. The way you get it, you return it as it is or better. Now we have generation who to come. Now, how are they going to judge us? Are they going to judge us that we got everything and we messed it up and we left? Or they're going to remember as we were thinking of them? I know as a father, I would be thinking of my child or my son to be a better citizen in a way of looking after him, educating him, and letting him know manners are important. And also you need to contribute to your society. This is how we need to look after our environment. But if we don't think about that, it might be too late. And if we do too little, too late, it will not help us. We need to understand environment is important. And long ago, people don't talk about environment. But environment means everything right now. From agricultural point of view, because I study agricultural science, if you don't look after your environment, you are gone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And Karen.
Yes, thank you. Look, and a number of the issues have already been covered by the other candidates. And what's really fantastic about Yarra is, in fact, the climate emergency plan. I fully supported it. It's wonderful. But there's, of course, more things that we can do. I think one of the things that we can do around planning, and Gabrielle has already mentioned the planning scheme, and that's what needs to be changed to make some of those more, make those advances around the more renewals, etc., that we can do. But I mean, one of the other things that we can do is when individual developments come in is to look at what greenery and what canopy perhaps is being put forward by a developer. And I think often you hear, and it's happened in the Grenville estate, if we think about the paper mills, the advertisements for the new developments come out and say, you know, you'll be in the heart of Yarra in the beautiful rivers and trees, and that's all true. And we do get to enjoy all our amenities and our green space together. But to my mind, that doesn't all automatically extinguish a developer's obligation to include more greenery, more canopy, more renewables in their planning applications. So I certainly, if I was elected, I would be looking at what those planning applications do to achieve more than just looking at what greenery might be around externally. And I think the other thing that we can really be thinking about around the greenery is looking at how the commercial businesses can move to renewables, and also how we look after and encourage and support our low-income people in converting their homes to more renewable energy sources. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. And Stephen.
Listen, Dave, there's some very beautiful words that have just been spoken by all the participants tonight about climate change. I'm sorry to have to bring it back to reality, to bring it back to facts, but the facts are that 7 weeks ago, on the 7th of August, the Labour Party and the Greens decided to throw out the window the much vaunted 4-bin trial. They threw out the window $300,000 worth of bike infrastructure, a bike lane for Brunswick Street, a bike lane for Russell Crescent, and a plan to move our offices and also our swimming pools over to renewable energy. Because they said, well, we don't have the money for it, even though we've got $55 million of cash reserves. So whatever they're saying tonight, they did exactly the opposite 7 weeks ago. Their party did exactly the opposite. So what has to happen post this election is those cuts have to be reversed, because they create jobs and they're good for the environment. And if we're really serious about climate change, we've got to act, not just talk nice words tonight. We actually have to do that. Second thing and final thing is, as I said earlier on today, over 80% of our emissions come from fossil fuel energy powering our offices and our buildings. That has to change by changing the planning scheme to make it enforceable that all new energy has to be renewable on our large developments. Not in mum and dad who want to put an extra bedroom at the back of their house, but all the large developments that will rapidly reduce carbon emissions in the city of Yarra. If we do those two things, not just talk about it, but do it, things will be a lot better with climate change in the city of Yarra.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Look, we'll now go to our break. I've gone to a bit of trouble for our interval. I'm just going to see if this will work. Oh, no. Hang on. I'm not sure. I'm just going to do this and let me see. No. Oh, what a shame. I was going to do this wonderful interval slide. But anyway, it's not going to work, and I really apologise. So, look, we're just going to have a break. I'm just going to walk away from this now, and I'm not going to bother.
How long, Rod?
5 minutes, Stephen. So starting now, and I'm sorry, oh, that was such a great slide. I'm going to make it work for tomorrow night. Anyway, you've got 5 minutes, and we'll be back with more questions with our candidates in 5 minutes. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Rod. See you soon.
Just in case.
Okay, well, I hope somebody's listening. We're about to return. So once we've got you all back on screen, we'll get on with our next questions. Oh, there we go. There's Michael. Hi, Michael. Now, Matt, if you're listening,
Yes.
Currently I've got, I'm getting full screen faces and only 4 thumbnails on my screen.
Yep.
At the moment, I've got Matt full screen. Oh, sorry, wrong. Mark, I was going to talk to. Sorry, Matt. Mark, I was going to talk to. Are you there, Mark? Not yet. Okay.
Yep, all good, Rod. Let's go ahead.
So look, I'm getting you as you're speaking on full screen. I've clicked on the.
Go ahead, Rod. We're ready.
Yeah, I'm only getting 4 thumbnails, and one you're on full screen, and I've got Jeremy, Michael, YCR residents, and Sarah as thumbnails. And I've got to scroll across to see the others. So
select gallery view on the top right, Rod.
Yeah, I've got. Oh, hang on, is that up here? Oh, sorry, there. I'm glad you're there. Very good. All right. Well, I think we're almost all back. Are you there, Gabrielle?
I am, sorry.
Oh, good on you. Thank you. All right. Well, welcome back, and welcome back to all those people watching us online. Thus far, we've had 340 people tune in to this town hall, which would fill any town hall that is in the city of Yarra. So that's a fantastic result thus far. So we'll move on to our next question. Which I think is possibly the most significant for many people watching. And it is very simply from Margaret O'Brien of Langridge Ward. What role will you play to advocate for heritage protection, including the expansion of the World Heritage Environs areas? So is anybody willing to take that up? Yes, Anna, we have you.
I think heritage listing is very, very important, and I consider this to be my home, and anyone will protect their home to the fullest and they'll fight for it. And I'm willing to take the step to get the community to get together and pretty much go hard on this topic and get them to get involved and engaged in it, because it is important. I remember years ago when Liberal actually tried to come for our buildings, and the whole community actually got involved and signed petitions and things like that. So I think the next move to make is the same thing, but this time to actually get the heritage listing going as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Anab. And Matt.
Yeah, thank you. I think it's important that always when people are making decisions, the thing we need to know is to learn about the important and to learn about why are we doing this. Now, as I talked about the environment, also having heritage is significant for 1 or 2 reasons. First of all is acknowledgement for others who have invested everything, including their lives. Secondly is educational. Now, when you see a building, Bluestone or any other, it's been around for 100 years plus or 80 or 90. Now, you learn from it. these people have very limited resources at the time, and they manage to have what you have now. What do you do with it? You need to, first of all, acknowledge it. Secondly, value it. Thirdly, sustain it so that the others will come. And that's how we as nation and also civilization get recorded in that way. And I think if I'm elected, it will be important to have people who know the places that I need to be included. Because, you know, I've been here for a short time, 18 years, others like yourself and others been here longer. And we have people who really study this. It will be important to have them so that they can detail us and they can walk out through. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Matt. And Peter.
Thanks, Rod. I would say that the World Heritage Area is something that we look after, not just for people in the area in Yarra and Melbourne City Council, but it is something that's of importance to the entire city, and it's important that it be protected. I think that the approach that we have to heritage needs to be an holistic approach. It's not enough for us to have facadism where we just hang on to the facades of the buildings and nothing else. We have to make sure that we are protecting heritage, thinking about the context in which it exists. So I'm very much in favour of us protecting our heritage while we continue to evolve the area and make sure the heritage works for the community, that we can retain those connections back to our long and important past. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. And Gabrielle.
Thanks, Rod, and thank you for the question, Margaret. There is a great deal of cultural heritage in the area, which is diverse and it is deep. The area around Fitzroy and Carlton is of great significance, firstly to the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people, and it continues its cultural significance for Aboriginal communities, including the local Parkies. As Anab mentioned, the public housing community near Atherton Gardens, or nearby at Atherton Gardens, is intent to list the building for its cultural significance and to prevent further sell-offs and demolition of that public housing estate. And that would come along as a complement to establishing a charter of rights for public housing tenants and a public housing ombudsman. Back to heritage, though, of course, the World Heritage Environs area, which includes the Royal Exhibition Buildings and the Carlton Gardens, is a beautiful and celebrated artefact that just, abuts Langridge Ward and the city of Yarra. And it's a beautiful and celebrated artefact and attraction which must be protected for its heritage and historic value. Thanks to the advocacy of Adam Bant, the leader of the Greens, the integrity of the building has been preserved and upgraded at the federal level. And it will be wonderful to walk around it when things open up again and admire the restored dome and appreciate its original intention in the history of Melbourne. There is a review process underway of that World Heritage Environs, and the Greens on Council have contributed to it. Importantly, they've addressed and questioned why a site of such important World Heritage continues to host a private event which occupies the site for a number of months each year, during which public access is denied. So I will continue that advocacy on Council. I also recognise in a more general sense across Yarra and in Langridge that there is a great deal of tension between accommodating new development and preserving the heritage of Yarra, what gives it its vital character. I will work hard to diligently represent the community's interest in this tension and preserve the things that we love about Yarra as I help to shape a growing city.
Thank you, Gabrielle. And Michael.
Mute, that's better. Thank you, Rod. I'm very passionate about heritage. And thank you, Margaret, for your question. Yarra has a rich heritage of places, buildings, landscapes, streets, laneways, and objects. We have to protect all these for our future kids, generations. I've been involved in a a heritage laneway takeover, and after 7 years, it has come to fruition that we have got it back. So I'll be fighting all the way. I will not stop with heritage, as you know. I've helped, who was it? The FRA, I think it was, at the restaurant to object to some of these demolishing the heritage buildings on the corner of Brunswick and Victoria Parade around the corner. So I'm very passionate with that. And also, on another token, council should employ heritage advisors, not only one, at least two, so they can go on with the backlog that the current applications demand. That's all, thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Is there anybody else?
Yeah, I had my,
Sorry, yes, Stephen.
Look, I think having a World Heritage Site in Yarra, recognised by UNESCO no less than for its universal values, is a matter of pride for a nation, for locals, for Yarra. The problem is that the rules that are employed to protect that are preferred in the main, recommended in the main. They're not mandatory. Can you imagine if we did that with parking fines? You overstay your car park in Brunswick Street and your parking fine says it's preferred, it's not mandatory. We'd have no money coming into the council, I can tell you that. So that's the problem with the protection for the World Heritage Site at the moment. But it's not just there, as other people have said. You've got a situation, for example, in Queen's Parade, that to developers, they see Queen's Parade, and they did a couple of years ago when they moved in there, as one big profit opportunity. They didn't see that they were going to destroy the goose that laid the golden egg. The heritage values, the shopping strips in Bridge Road, in Brunswick Street, and of course in Queen's Parade are what attracts people to the area rather than going to shopping at some soulless shopping centre. But the rules that protect those heritage listed shopping strips are not as strong as they should be, and therefore they can get around them time and time again. And it took an almighty battle by the residents of Clifton Hill and North Fitzroy that many people watching here tonight will have been involved in to actually get the result that we wanted, which was a 10-metre setback and a limit to 4 stories on that particular shopping strip. So I think that with heritage, I agree with what Michael said, we need to have more heritage advisors. We also need to listen to them, because when we do get a heritage advice at IDAC, the little sort of Judge Judy thing where we decide on controversial planning applications, often the planners ask us to ignore the advice of the heritage advisors. And that's because the heritage rules are not mandatory. We have to make them mandatory to protect the future, the same as they do in other parts of the world. We're not doing it here. And if we don't do that, we're going to wreck the beautiful heritage strips that we have at the present moment in time, not only the World Heritage Site in Fitzroy.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Anybody else would like to contribute? Yes, Karen.
Thanks, Rod. Yeah, and look, a number of the issues have already been mentioned, but I'd like to go back to my opening remarks where I stated that when we do an acknowledgement of country, it's more than just simply a set of words. To me, it's an essential part of my thinking and decision making, and the way that we embrace our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander and traditional owner heritage is really, really important in framing and forming the decisions we make about world heritage. So there's of course also European heritage issues that we need to be really mindful of. And I think the C231, the Queen's Parade campaign, is a really, really a good example of a successful community organisation that maintained our heritage, our European heritage. But I think we've got to have a mind to thinking about how we embrace our heritage for all our people, and not just in Langridge and Yarra, but of course Victoria and what it means for people around the country too. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Anybody else would like to contribute to that question? Okay, well, look, we'll move on to the next question, which comes from Jamie Gardner of Langridge Ward. LGBTIQ businesses are not only businesses, but also play an important role as safe places and cultural hubs. How will you make sure that they are amply supported in future COVID recovery plans? Yes, Jeremy.
Thank you. Now, I feel like I need to speak on this issue personally. The reason that I was drawn to the area, to Yarra, and originally when I moved to Fitzroy in particular, was the vibrant nightlife and those gorgeous spaces that we all cherish. It's because I came from what was used to be a very safe liberal area for very conservative values, and I felt invisible there. Whereas when I came to Fitzroy, I felt celebrated and I felt supported. So these spaces are very important, and we must never forget that. In regards to how we can support them, is we need to have plans for each individual shopping precinct. I believe there's one on Bridge Road where it's a collective of small businesses and vendors on the road that come together, and collectively they advertise Bridge Road, and they come together to talk about issues that are important and plan as a collective. And that's what needs to be done in Brunswick Street, Smith Street, Victoria Street as well. So we need a successful shopping strip will only happen if every shop is successful and all the businesses are there supporting each other. You can't have just one shop that's really successful and others that aren't. So within the guidelines of reopening, once we can start to use these spaces, we needed to talk to these venues, particularly in regards to the queer venues, the nightlife, and how we can support them in reopening, and if that includes using public space, taking over more footpaths, car parking spaces, whatever it may be, so we can support them. And so we need to create those communities within the vendors themselves, so they can help each other and share ideas collectively. Thanks.
Thanks, Jeremy. We'll come to Peter and then Matt. So Peter.
Thanks, Rod. Thinking about this question, it definitely makes me think back to what Collingwood and Fitzroy were like 10 or 15 years ago. And we have seen the diversity of venues that used to exist and safe spaces for the queer community. It has definitely declined, and there is a little bit of a loss in that, I think. And if I think back to what the Glass House Hotel was, if I think back to what the Builders Arms used to be, I mean, now they are really nice venues. The Glass House Hotel is a really nice restaurant now, and Builders Arms is a really nice wine bar. But there is a sense of that the community lost something when those places changed. So I really do think that there is a role for council in supporting LGBTIQ venues, and that should be firstly through advocacy, which Yarra Council often does very well, through making sure that it's clear that this is a council that does support that community and that will work to make sure that they are supported. Secondly, it's about advertising the area as somewhere that is a destination for these types of businesses. And thirdly, it is about recognising that they aren't just businesses. Often these places, these venues are supported by individuals, just one person, sometimes two people that make these places work. So it's important that we're providing support to them as well. And I think that we really do need to hang on to these venues, because once they're gone, they may never come back.
Okay, thank you, Peter. So we'll come to Matt now, and then we'll go to Gabrielle and Karen after that. So Matt and Stephen finally, yeah.
Thank you for that. Now, as I mentioned earlier in my remarks, I said we need to look after our small businesses. Now, we need to have a holistic approach where there is no one to be left out for one reason or another. When we stay as a community, and one of the things I said, when you value the voices of the community, their concern, their needs, regardless of their background, whether it's race, whether they are bringing and whatever other reason it might be. If we have planned to look after our small businesses, everyone needs to be included, where council will have a way of budget put forward after COVID-19, as I mentioned earlier. Some people lost their jobs, some people lost their businesses, but if we come together and saying this is what we're going to do as a community, we need to be responsive, we need to be caring for each other, because when things, COVID-19 is over, it will take us some time, but if we do it together as a community, we recover very quickly. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. And Gabrielle.
I think Karen actually had her sum up before I did. If you wanted to go first, Karen?
No, you just keep going. It'll be fine.
Okay, all right. So the City of Yarra has 5 times the percentage of same-sex couples as the Victorian state average, so that's pretty significant. But when I moved to Melbourne, the Centre for Queer Culture was along Commercial Road in Paran, and without council stepping in to support it, it fizzled out. Yarra is now the centre for queer business and queer culture, but we risk losing it if we don't show it some love. The gay rights movement started in this area in Collingwood and Fitzroy, and it lives on in some of our most important businesses, Hares and Hyenas, The Laird, The Peel, Circuit, Eagle Leather. As a member of the queer community, a quiet one, albeit, I want queer business and queer culture to stay in Yarra and to thrive. That not only means celebrating and promoting it, which is really important, but it also means listening to the needs of the community and the businesses and providing holistic support for that community, for health, for recreation, for entertainment, for LGBTIQA+ people of all ages and all backgrounds, so that they can live and work and play in Yarra. The Yarra Council already proudly flies the rainbow flag, and as part of my commitment to the queer community, I will seek the Rainbow Tick accreditation for council-run services and seek to establish a queer advisory committee to council. I recognise queer businesses' contribution to this community, and I will do what I can to embrace and support that. There's a Pride Hub opening up in St Kilda, and I would love to see a Northern Pride Hub opening here in Yarra. I think that it would be really great for a queer male and trans-focused sexual health clinic here in Yarra. I think in order to properly support our queer business community, queer quotas for recovery grants so that a designated portion of recovery funding goes into LGBTIQ business. And I'd also fight to preserve the iconic queer businesses in the event of takeovers or development.
Thank you, Gabrielle. Now, Karen?
Thanks, and thanks, Gabrielle, for being on the ball there. Look, again, lots of the comments that I would make have already been made. And full disclosure, Jamie Gardner and I have worked on a number of strategies together as part of our LGBTI community. But I think some of the things that we've already spoken about around heritage and placemaking and dedicated placemaking is really crucial for our community. People come to Yarra because we're diverse. It's something that, it's our diversity that attracts people. But then when people start to embed themselves in the community, they start to say, well, I'm not sure that I really like that little bit of diversity, and I don't like that live music so much, and I don't like those queer people walking around my neighbourhood. So I think we need to do a lot more to make sure that our community, our LGBTIQ community, is kept safe in the Yarra community, and of course right across our country. And I also think that when it comes to heritage listing, we need to remember, and it's been touched on before, but we need to remember all those places that do make Yarra such a vibrant and diverse community, and think about what heritage listing can be applied there. And the other thing that is really important about my community and our community here is that people just don't come to enjoy the cafes, the bars, the restaurants, the bookshops, the leather bars, but they also people come here to get health information. They come here to come out and feel safe in coming out. And that's really, really crucial that we maintain that safety and that togetherness and that connection for our LGBTI community. Thank you.
Thanks, Karen. And Stephen, and then we'll come to Anab.
Thanks, Rod. I think there's a reason why Eagle Leather, the Peel Hotel, Circuit, Molly's have endorsed my re-election campaign. And if you walk past those premises tomorrow morning, you'll see my posters on their window. Because over the last few years, I've worked so closely with the LGBTI community and the clubs in our area to help them in the issues they've had with council. Right at the moment, helping the Circuit get the queer space that they want on the corner of Gertrude and Smith Street and getting through all the myriad of planning and building permits that they need in this COVID time. Getting the parking that was necessary outside the Peel Hotel so that they could actually load up in a very, very busy street. Getting the rainbow colors put on Smith Street and Peel Street over the course of the last few years. Getting the money for Yarra to be the social hub when the AIDS conference came to Melbourne several years ago. And also right at the moment, trying to expand trading on the north side of Gertrude Street and on Peel Street to help the businesses that are currently suffering. Because this is about money, not strategies. At the moment, these bars, these clubs have been closed for 6 months, and all their staff, dozens and dozens of mainly young people, one of whom, by the way, in the past, one of my own kids used to manage the Circuit. They're all unemployed. They're all on job seeker. If they're lucky, they're on job keeper. The whole scene is dead. And that's why it was a real tragedy that at the budget, we jacked up the rates for these people. That's made it more and more difficult for these people to recover. In fact, the Peel have even got an appeal on Facebook at the moment for money to keep them alive at the present moment in time. So I think that support for the community will continue for me if I'm re-elected. But also we have to look at economically what can we do to assist them after not operating for 6 months. And jacking up rates is not something that's going to help.
Thanks, Stephen. And Anab?
I think the LGBTQ community is what makes Fitzroy. Moving here, I've met a lot of great people. First, because of the different cultures, you know, we had a lot of debates and things like that. They gave me knowledge and their culture and how they see things. And, you know, I've never met anyone that wasn't amazing from that community or a good person in general. And I think respectfully to value them and respect them as they are, and to support anything and to ask them what they need after the recovery, how they want things done and what we can do to help them.
Thank you very much, Anab. Does anybody else want to contribute to that question? All right, well, we'll move on to the next one, which is from Glenn McCallum, Protect North Fitzroy, Nichols Ward. Much of Yarra lacks public open space. Do candidates agree that more needs to be done in this area? And if so, what will be your approach to increasing our access to public open space? Hands up. James, you're in. Oh, we can't hear you, James. No, there's nothing there. Oh, look, we'll go to Matt while you try and work that out. But you there? No, we've lost you for the moment. Matt, we'll go.
Yeah, thank you.
And come back to James.
As I mentioned, I have 2 boys. One of them is 3.5. Now, because of lockdown, he's jumping everywhere. You could not imagine. When you see it, it's something altogether different. Now, having spaces, open space is very important. How are we going to do that? There is a lot of places and buildings that are being demolished, and they have developers building, you know, a apartment and so on. Now, if elected, I will encourage the council. The council have some lanes, and one of the things that attract people to come, and you know, Melbourne is most livable city. It's one of these things, having a space, open space, where people could, you know, enjoy themselves as a family or as friends or having an event. And the other thing from the environmental economics, these spaces are called free services. They're not free as such, but having them, someone could have a bad day. And when they go to open space where they could listen to birds or seeing things around, that could change their mood. Yeah, mentally will change things around, and it's important thing. Also, when it comes to having trees around, having flowers, having grass, in fact, that helps sustain the soil. You know, soil is something that is important. People sometimes don't understand, but in soil is very diverse. and inclusion is there too. Things work together for a benefit of whatever that you're going to have, whether it's a tree that you're going to have, a crops, and any other thing that you might like to have. Now, if we have open space where people will be able to access it, and importantly, we'll have people to visit these places, like it's a good thing. And nowadays, people will be kind of attracted to go to a certain suburb because of open space where they will not be concerned about, traffic and all of the above. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Matt. And James, are you back online?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Sure, not a problem. Well, first of all, thank you, Glenn, for providing this question. It's a very good point. And our community needs more green and open space. And various studies indicate that residents report to be happier when more green spaces are located in their neighborhood. Its effect is real. And over the years, scientists have shown that the nature can provide stress relief, increase social interactions, encourage physical exercise, and even prevents mental illnesses. And it is one of my policies to stomp out any overdevelopment in our Yarra community. For instance, during this caretaking period, a planning application was made to Yarra City Council to build a 15-story office building on 38 Grosvenor Street in Abbotsford. The local residents will know how narrow the surrounding streets are. They are packed with cars. With the current infrastructure, we cannot possibly have any more major development like this one in our current neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you, James. Now, sorry, we're getting close to time. We have one last question listed, and it's from Maggie McCormack of Nichols Ward. I don't want to make it a yes or no question, but we'll need to keep answers brief. Will you support increased council financial support for the iconic Gertrude Street Projection Festival, given the impact of COVID-19 on the rescheduling of the festival to 2021 and the impact on the capacity of traders to financially support the festival? Gabrielle, you were in there quick, and we'll go to Peter after that.
Thanks, Rod. So Yarra has a reputation as a world-class creative city. I know I've been an artist for 15 years, and I've been supported as I have emerged and established myself as an artist by the city of Yarra. Artists were struggling before COVID, and they have taken a really big hit this year. It's not how they will recover despite COVID, it's how artists will help the COVID recovery. For its own sake, as Australia's longest running projection festival, the Gertrude Street Projection Festival needs more support than ever so that it can deliver a cutting edge and inspiring suite of works to the public as it does yearly. In our policies, the Greens have committed to an increasing number and size of creative grants available. These are arm's length grants which prevent political interference and censorship, and it would be to support festivals, street art and large scale projects like the Projection Festival. Gertrude Street itself is also calling out for a revival. There are 18 shop fronts that are closed, vacant premises that are closed at the moment on a relatively short strip. And the traders are calling out for investment in outdoor dining and a permanent change to the culture of the street for it to be revived. Part of this should include support for temporary and permanent creative activations of the streetscape, and the Projection Festival is a perfect candidate for this. I absolutely love the theme of the festival for 2021, 500 years from now. I mean, at council, we're talking about, the Greens candidates are talking about a 20-year plan for council being visionary, but 500 years, I'm really blown away. So I look forward to the Yarra City Council further supporting the Gertrude Street Projection Festival and experiencing it in 2021.
Thanks, Gabrielle. And we'll come to Peter, then Matt, and then Anab, and then we'll have to go to our wrap-up. So, Peter?
Cool. Thanks, Rod. Absolutely, I think that this is so important for the council to support these festivals, and not just the Gertrude Street Projection Festival, but to create other events as well that will bring our community back together. We have spent the best part, the greater part of this year locked inside, unable to connect with each other. We need to rebuild our social capital and rebuild the sense of community, reconnect to each other. And these sorts of festivals are perfect opportunities to build that sense of place. So I 100% support it. And I think that the council should be putting funding into these sorts of events.
Good on you, Peter. Thank you. And Matt?
Yes, this sort of festival are very important for our togetherness, vibrance, holistic, where we show that we are human and we want things to be done in that way. And also it encourages others to come and attend these kind of event where they might be interested in something that could be useful for the event. And I would support the council to contribute towards it because it's a good thing. And a lot of people will know that a certain council have a number of events, and that will help even the traders and the local businesses to have extra income. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. And Anab.
I think it's important to encourage festivities, and not only that, to have festivities from every different culture. I don't think we've ever had that in Fitzroy. So that a festival where each culture complements its own culture, whether it's the Somalians, whether it's all Africans in general, Europeans, you know, the original owners of this land, to have a festival that can actually bring businesses together, communities together, and that way is the best form of making money. Their food, their, you know, the drinks that they serve, the things that we don't know that's cultural to them that they eat, you know. So it's very important to have festivities, and not only one festival, festivities to encourage the whole community to get involved and to share a little bit of their culture. Thank you.
Thank you, Anab. All right, well, look, we've come to that part of the evening where we're going to ask you to just take a minute to wrap up for our viewers. We're going to do this in reverse order of the ballot. And so we go to Matt first. You've got a minute, Matt.
Thank you so much. And as I said, we build it bottom up. Now I came up. Thank you. Now, I would like to thank you for viewing our answers and listening to us. If I'm to be elected, and for me to be elected, you need to give me number one. As I said, build it bottom up. Now you're going to make a history because I will be the first African to be elected in city of Yarra, even though African been living here for about 30 years or plus. This not will be just talk of city of Yarra, but it will be talk of Australia and importantly, globally. You would show diversity and inclusion. And you're not going to talk about it, but you're going to show it by electing me. And as a local person, I'm not coming as an African, but I'm coming as someone who's qualified, involved in the community, easy to access, know what the community needs. And thank you so much for having me.
It's a great pleasure, Matt. Thank you very much. And Gabrielle.
Thank you. This year has been hard for all of us. As we reach the end of a critical decade to address climate change, we are faced by another massive global challenge. Our lives this year have been shaped by this pandemic, and it's triggered a host of other problems: unemployment, mental health issues. Many are facing racial or gender inequality. Some of you may be part of a mutual aid group or even an informal support network in your neighbourhood. But whatever form it takes, our communities have become, and they will continue to become, more important than ever. I've personally had some really hard family events this year, as well as the lockdown that we're all experiencing. And what kept me going was my local community. I set up a mutual aid group in our area just before the first lockdown, thinking that I would be able to support those in need around me, not realizing that at times the person in need would be me. I want to give back to Yarra. I want to help to grow and nourish our communities, to help make this city a place where no one is left behind, and to protect our precious urban ecology that gives everything life. I'm really proud to be running on a joint Greens ticket with Anab Mohammed, who's here tonight. And we've heard from, as well, some great ideas and amazing energy. And I'm really proud to be running as part of a team of talented Greens candidates. We've developed some really great policies, and I'm eager to work with our communities to realise them. So I'd love to hear from you. Please connect with me by searching Yarra for the Yarra Greens webpage, where you can find my number and email address, or connect with me via Facebook at Gabrielle De Viatri for Langridge Ward. Finally, collaboration is key to getting good outcomes. Loud, divisive voices may get attention, but it's councillors who work well as a team that get results. I hope I can have your vote, and I look forward to working closely with you in the future. Thank you
Very much, Gabrielle. And Jeremy.
Thank you. So the choice tonight is simple. It's the status quo or the future. I believe that I can best represent our community. I will not always know the answers, but I will always seek the evidence to support the answer that I can find. I believe in smart community consultation. We need to bring the consultation to the community, not dragging the community to the consultation. We need small business support and long-term planning. And we need to unlock those open spaces for our whole community. Sorry.
That's all right. It's been a long night.
It has, hasn't it? Oh, sorry. That's all right. I've said enough. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeremy. And Anand.
I think it's important to have someone that actually is in the community, that is around the community and is involved with the community. I think I'll be great for council because there's experiences that I bring that a lot of people might not be aware about, you know, and I'm loyal to my community. I love my community. They're my family. They supported me through my teenage years till going through motherhood. And even the times that I was working, I didn't have family. They were my family. They were helping me out with my daughter while I was at work. For that reason, I'm very passionate in helping my community reach the levels and goals that they need to have a brighter and bigger future for all of us, the youth, the children, and the elders, and not leaving anyone behind. And although we all share different beliefs, respecting and valuing each other for that as well. That's what I'm in for. And I guess if you feel my energy, then you should know what you want to vote for me as.
Thank you very much, Anab. And Peter.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks to you and thanks to the organisers of tonight's town hall as well. If we could rewind back to 2016 when we voted for our current councillors, I think nobody would have been considering the skills that would be needed to guide the council through a global pandemic. This time around, though, we know that the next 4 years are very uncertain. So we need a diverse council made up of people with a variety of different backgrounds who will collectively be able to come up with creative solutions to solve the complex problems that we are inevitably going to face. I am independent. I'm not climbing any political party ladder. I'm not accepting donations from anyone. I'm not affiliated with any particular group. I am here because I care about our local community and because I want to represent you. I love this place and I want it to be the best that it can be. So I'd like to leave you with two things. Firstly, I'm a Collingwood supporter and I think that should be a legal prerequisite for representing Langridge Ward.
Boo.
Secondly, maybe more seriously, please do reach out to me. My contact details are on my website, peterhugh.com. You can preferably email, call if that works better, write me a letter if you really have to for some reason. My promise to the residents of Yarra Council is that if elected, I will be accessible. So if you want to talk to me, I will be here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Peter. And now Karen.
Thank you. And look, I did want to contribute to that last two questions, and I'll just quickly put my thumb up. It was missed, and if the people that are controlling the machines can keep the thumb up there for the next 45 seconds, I would appreciate that. Thanks everybody out there who has come along to listen to all the candidates tonight. Community engagement is really, really important, as we've all discussed, and this is the beginning of some really important discussions that we can have. Thanks people for organising this and giving us the opportunity to speak. Yarra is a welcoming place to live, work and visit, and I'm really proud to be part of a broad Labor team who are putting themselves forward to contribute to that diversity and the rebuilding and the regrowth of our Yarra community. And we do that because there are many, many people in our community who also believe in the Labor values and the Labor political project to maintain services, to look after people and to build our community. So your vote for myself and for Rowan, who's also running in Langridge, and for my other Labor colleagues across the entire Yarra City of Council. It's important to bring a diverse voice to the community. So please go across to our website, yarralabor.org, and find out more about us. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Karen. And James. The inaudible James again. How's it going, James? Well, look.
Hear me now?
Yes, we can. Yes.
About that. Okay, I'm a person with conservative values. As some of you are aware, I'm a member of the Liberal Party, but it does not mean that I'm locked into advocate for the agenda. I assure you that I have not received any financial support from the party, developers, or unions. My election campaign was entirely funded by myself, local residents, businesses, and my former colleagues who believe in me, my values, judgment, and abilities. Let me say this clear to you. I will always put residents of Yarra first and act in your best interest and best interest of our children. I anticipate some groups may not like my ideas and policies, but I will stand strong. I'll do whatever is right, even if it's not popular. Most importantly, when there are issues, I will consult with you and engage democratic discussions and find optimal solutions that work for us. Before concluding, I reiterate my key priorities. First, transparent decision-making process within the council. Second, suspension of rate increases through better financial management. Third, improvement of our public transport capacity. Fourth, strong advocacy for relocation of the injection room. Lastly, timely development of Walmer Street Bridge to commence in 2021, not 2023 or 24. Thank you.
Thank you very much, James. And Stephen.
Thanks, Rod. Look, it's great that all the candidates love the area and have strategies and want strategies for the city of Yarra, but Yarra is world's best practice at strategies. We've got strategies coming out of every orifice, whether it's waste management, environment, cycling, and all of them were torn up and ignored at the recent budget. It's very, very interesting that not a single candidate from the major parties that are standing in this election tried to defend the budget on the August the 7th, which destroyed life for so many businesses and poor people in our area. So me and Michael and Bridget in the other ward and Dora and David down in the Melba ward, if we get elected, we've got a 10-point program. Some of those issues are a commitment to build low-cost housing and inclusionary zoning, low-cost housing on the site next to Collingwood Town Hall. We want to make mandatory all big developments to use renewable energy by changing the planning scheme accordingly. Matching local infrastructure to local needs. The population in the next 15 years is expected to go up by 50%. It's the fastest growing area in Australia. We need a new childcare centre, more support for public housing tenants. We want to return the much promised food and organic waste bin, which we were promised all year and was thrown out in the budget of August the 7th. We want to stop the revaluation rot where people are now told that their houses are worth way more than they actually are in order to be able to be rated too much by the Yarra Council. We also want to increase the pensioner rate rebate, which is scandalously low at the present moment in time. The local area traffic management schemes have all been scrapped this year. They need to be reintroduced for obvious reasons. We need to have an annual street festival in Yarra to help boost local businesses, get people back to work, bring people back to the area in the post-COVID period. And finally, and most importantly, in my opinion, a root and branch change of the planning scheme. The planning scheme at Yarra is biased towards the developers. The developers rule the roost in Yarra at the present moment in time. We have this sort of like merry-go-round where we try our best to tie them up at IDAC, tie them up at VCAT, but 9 times out of 10 they win. We have to change the rules. We have to change them towards density controls, forcing low-cost housing and all big developments, and make them environmentally friendly. It's amazing that in New York, it's illegal to have a bedroom with no natural light, but that's allowed in the city of Yarra. These things have to change. This is our 10-point program. We're going to start implementing them between the election and Easter if we're elected. So I encourage you to vote for me, 1, Michael, 2, and in the other wards, vote for our colleagues, Bridget, Dora, and David. Thanks, Rod.
Thank you very much, Stephen. And Michael, you to wrap up. You'll need your microphone on, Michael. Almost there.
There we go.
There we go.
Right. I just want to say thank you for you being our wonderful MC, and to the organisers who put this on for us. Stephen has mentioned a lot of our policies. Just one other thing that I wanted to mention as well, a couple of things. I have been closed now for the last 6 months. I have not earned 1 red cent. I haven't employed anyone in the area, and I urge everyone to support our businesses, all our businesses along Brunswick Street, Gertrude Street, Smith Street, and help them along the way. And also, at the height of the global health pandemic, with family budgets stretched to the limit, like never before, our current councillors chose to increase our rates yet again. Appalling, shame. What we need is help our businesses to get back on their feet. We need a council that will be focused on critical services like community services, health and aged care, local parks, sporting clubs, childcare, libraries. Our focus must be working with the state and federal governments to secure more jobs, not political grandstanding. I just want to ask you for your support to vote for Michael, number 1, Stephen, number 2. And as Stephen mentioned, in the other wards, Bridget O'Brien, Dora Tsipuras, sorry, that's not Greek, and David. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael. And look, thank you very much to all of you to give us your time and your thoughts on such a wide range of issues in a very complex ward.
Well chaired.
You can't hear this, but that's the sound of over 350 people giving you a round of applause. So I'll stand in for them. So thank you all so very much. Thank you very much to those people who organised this. It's been a really extraordinary effort to make it happen, and it's been extremely successful. I see, Matt, you've got your hand up. Is there something you'd like to add?
No, it's just clapping because you say.
Clapping. Okay, that's very good. And look, I didn't get time to ask my question, but you can follow this up when you're elected. What are you going to do for stand-up comedians who have been at it for 50 years and don't have an audience anymore and nowhere to work? What are you going to do about that? Anyway, you haven't got time for that answer. Thank you to everybody who came online to watch this. I think you found it extremely valuable. Your ballots will be mailed out to you next week. There are websites everywhere that you can go and check on. And tomorrow night we move on to Nichols Ward, and you're more than welcome to join us for that podcast as well. So thank you all once again. Thank you again to all our candidates, and good luck to each and every one of you in the coming election.
Thanks.
Good night all.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rod. Great to meet you all. Thanks for coming, everyone. Thanks for organising.
Bella.
See you, Nab.
Bye all.